Maya Lewis was a bright and curious 12-year-old girl who often found herself daydreaming about making a difference in the world. Her heart swelled with admiration for Rosa Parks, the courageous woman who famously stood up for what was right. Maya looked up to Rosa not just for her bravery but also for her ability to speak out and inspire others. However, despite her dreams, Maya struggled with one major thing: speaking up in front of others. In school, Maya felt like she was often overshadowed by louder classmates. When teachers asked questions, her voice would get lost in the crowd. She longed to share her thoughts and ask important questions, especially during discussions about civil rights and social justice. But every time she opened her mouth to speak, doubt rushed in like a tidal wave, drowning her confidence before she could even begin. As the day of the Civil Rights Assembly approached, Maya felt a mix of excitement and fear. The auditorium buzzed with energy as students gathered to hear stories of change and courage. Maya knew it was a special moment, one that could inspire both herself and others. She had prepared a question that she wanted to ask about how young people could contribute to social change, but as she sat among her peers, anxiety began to creep in. During the assembly, several speakers shared their powerful stories about standing up against injustice. Maya listened intently, her heart racing with inspiration, but when it was finally her turn to speak, dread filled her chest. Just as she gathered the courage to raise her hand, she overheard a few students whispering cruel remarks about her intentions. The whispers were sharp and hurtful, making her feel small and insignificant. Overwhelmed by embarrassment and fear, Maya's instincts told her to leave quietly before anyone noticed. As she stood up from her seat, trying not to draw attention to herself, she made her way toward the hallway. Just then, something unexpected happened. A gentle hand caught her arm. It was none other than Rosa Parks herself. "Your voice matters, Maya," Rosa said softly but firmly. "Never let anyone silence it." In that moment, with all eyes on them, everything changed for Maya. She felt a rush of strength flow through her veins as an undeniable spark of inspiration ignited within her, a feeling that encouraged her to stay and find her voice after all. The day of the Civil Rights Assembly arrived, and the atmosphere in the auditorium was electric with anticipation. Colorful banners adorned the walls, reading phrases like, "Equality for all," and "Your voice matters." Students filled the seats, chatting excitedly while teachers prepared on stage, their expressions serious and hopeful. Maya sat among her classmates, feeling a mix of excitement and anxiety swirl inside her like a storm. As she glanced around at her peers, she could see their eagerness to hear stories of courage and change. Maya admired how some students confidently participated in discussions, sharing their thoughts without hesitation. She wished she could feel that same confidence. The thought of standing in front of everyone to ask her question made her stomach twist into knots. Maya's heart raced as she imagined herself speaking up about how young people could impact social change. She had spent days rehearsing her words in front of the mirror, but now, sitting in the auditorium with all eyes around her, doubt crept in like a shadow. What if no one agreed with her? What if they laughed at her? Those questions buzzed in her mind like annoying flies. The assembly began with powerful speeches from community leaders who spoke passionately about past struggles and future hopes. Their voices filled the room with energy, igniting a fire within Maya's chest. Each story shared encouraged her to think about what it meant to stand up for what she believed in. Yet, amidst that inspiration, fear remained just below the surface. As more speakers took turns sharing their experiences fighting for equality and justice, Maya felt both uplifted and overwhelmed. She longed to join the conversation but feared the whispers that might follow if she dared to speak out. When one speaker asked students to raise their hands if they had questions or thoughts to share, Maya's heart thudded loudly in her chest. She raised her hand hesitantly but quickly lowered it when she caught sight of a couple of classmates snickering nearby. The laughter echoed like a thunderclap in her ears, drowning out the encouraging words from the stage. Feeling small and exposed among so many faces turned toward her, Maya decided it might be best to slip away quietly instead. As she stood up to leave, desperation urged her onward. She needed fresh air away from this moment where she felt invisible. Just as she reached the aisle, an unexpected touch stopped her. As the assembly continued, Maya sat on the edge of her seat, her heart pounding in rhythm with the beats of the speaker's words. They spoke passionately about standing up for justice and equality, and each story lit a spark inside her. She knew this was her moment to contribute, to ask her question about how young people could make a difference. Yet, just as that thought solidified in her mind, doubt began to creep in again. Maya took a deep breath and raised her hand, feeling a flicker of hope. But as she did so, she heard a few classmates whispering nearby. Their voices were low but sharp, slicing through the inspirational atmosphere like a knife. "What does she think she's doing?" one snickered. "No one cares what she has to say," another added with a laugh. Maya's heart sank as those words wrapped around her like heavy chains. The excitement that had built within her moments before vanished in an instant, replaced by an overwhelming sense of shame. She felt small and insignificant, as if every ounce of courage had been drained from her body. It was as if the entire room had suddenly turned dark, the vibrant banners and hopeful faces blurred into a backdrop against her growing anxiety. Looking at the confident smiles of those around her made Maya feel even more isolated. She glanced at the speaker on stage, whose words seemed to echo far away now. Instead of feeling empowered by the stories of courage and resilience, she felt crushed under the weight of her classmates' laughter. The assembly that once filled her with inspiration now seemed terrifying and unwelcoming. In that moment of vulnerability, Maya's mind raced through a whirlwind of doubts. What if they laughed at her? What if no one listened? Each question spiraled into more uncertainty, tightening its grip around her heart like a vice. She felt exposed and raw, wishing desperately to disappear into the shadows where no one could see or judge her. With tears threatening to spill over, Maya instinctively started to rise from her seat. She needed to escape this moment where she felt utterly alone, away from their whispers and judgmental eyes. Just as she made up her mind to leave quietly, she stood up fully and headed toward the aisle when suddenly she felt a gentle touch on her arm that halted her steps. Feeling the gentle touch on her arm startled Maya, pulling her out of her spiraling thoughts. For a brief moment, her heart raced, caught between the urge to flee and a flicker of hope ignited by that unexpected connection. But the whispers still echoed in her ears, sharp reminders of how vulnerable she felt. She looked around at the faces in the auditorium, their eyes filled with anticipation for speakers to share their truths. Maya wished she could feel that same sense of anticipation for herself. With every second that passed, the weight of hesitation grew heavier. Should she stay and risk the humiliation, or should she slip away and leave behind the judgment? The conflict raged within her like a storm. She thought about the stories she had heard, the brave people who stood up against injustice and spoke their mind. They had inspired her to want to speak up, yet here she was ready to disappear because of a few cruel comments. Maya's mind flashed back to Rosa Parks, the woman who had redefined what it meant to stand firm in one's beliefs. She imagined Rosa's calm strength and unwavering spirit as she had faced adversity head-on. What would Rosa do? Maya pondered desperately. She wished for even a fraction of that courage to flow through her veins. Tears formed in Maya's eyes as confusion and uncertainty waged war inside her heart. She wanted to believe that her voice mattered, just like those powerful leaders said. But what if the laughter continued? What if her words broke through the room but fell flat into silence? Each what if added fuel to her anxiety, making the decision feel almost unbearable. As she stood at the crossroads of action or retreat, Maya sensed something shifting within her. The gentle squeeze on her arm felt like an anchor amid the chaos swirling inside her mind. It pushed back against the hurtful whispers and reminded her that there was still a chance for courage this day. The assembly felt like a battle, but maybe, just maybe, it was also an opportunity. As she contemplated staying put, she inhaled deeply, filling her lungs with both air and hope. In that moment of decision, Maya knew in her heart that this was not just about her question. It was about representing every other shy girl who longed to speak but felt too afraid. And just like that, the weight began to lift. Maybe finding her voice was worth staying for after all. As Maya stood at the aisle, her heart pounding and her mind a whirlwind of doubt, she felt that gentle touch on her arm again. Turning slowly, she found herself looking into the warm, wise eyes of Rosa Parks. The world around them faded into a blur as the moment stretched out in time. It was as if everything else, the laughter, the whispers, the doubts, disappeared, leaving only this powerful connection between them. "Maya," Rosa said softly, her voice calm and reassuring. "Your voice matters. Never let anyone silence it." The profound sincerity in her words cut through Maya's anxiety like a ray of sunshine breaking through dark clouds. In that instant, she felt seen and understood. It was as if Rosa had pulled back the curtain on Maya's fears and insecurities, revealing the strength that lay beneath. Those few simple words ignited a flicker of courage deep within Maya's heart. She had admired Rosa for so long, her bravery, her resolve, and her unwavering spirit in the face of adversity. Now, standing right next to this legendary figure, Maya felt her own power beginning to awaken. This moment carried an urgency that she couldn't ignore. It was time for her to embrace who she was and what she believed in. Around them, the auditorium had fallen silent. Students and teachers watched with rapt attention, sensing the importance of this exchange. It became clear that this wasn't just a personal moment for Maya. It was a lesson about empowerment unfolding before everyone present. Maya swallowed hard, feeling as if she stood between two worlds, one filled with fear and retreat, and the other brimming with hope and possibility. The weight of doubt began to lift as Rosa's encouraging gaze locked onto hers, urging her forward. With every breath she took, Maya drew in not just air but determination, the kind that heroes are made of. At that moment, Maya made a choice. She would not let cruel remarks define her or dictate her actions any longer. With renewed strength flowing through her veins like electricity, she resolved to stay in the moment, to raise her hand and ask that question that had burned in her mind since the assembly began. "Thank you," Maya whispered to Rosa, feeling grateful for the gentle nudge toward bravery. The world may have been filled with uncertainties, but now she understood that her voice had a place in it, and it was time for her to use it. As Maya took a deep breath and prepared to speak, the atmosphere in the auditorium shifted. The silence that followed Rosa Parks' encouraging words was thick with anticipation, not just for Maya's voice but for the realization of what kindness could stir within a crowd. Students and teachers alike exchanged looks of understanding, sensing that something significant was unfolding before them. Maya raised her hand once again, this time feeling the weight of Rosa's support behind her like a sturdy shield. As she began to speak, her voice trembled at first but gradually grew stronger with each word. "I want to know how we, as young people, can make a change in our community." The question hung in the air, and instantly it sparked a wave of energy that rippled through the auditorium. To Maya's surprise, instead of laughter or ridicule, there was a collective gasp of admiration. Classmates who had once whispered cruel remarks now leaned forward in their seats, eager to hear her thoughts. Teachers nodded approvingly, their eyes shining with pride for the brave girl who had decided to stand up and share her feelings. This singular act of kindness from Rosa had not only empowered Maya but also transformed the dynamic in the room. Other students began to see her as someone brave enough to ask what many were thinking but too afraid to say. The whispers of mockery faded into hushed conversations filled with encouragement. As Maya spoke, she noticed several students exchanging smiles and supportive glances. An unspoken camaraderie formed among them. It became clear that her courage had ignited something deeper. It encouraged others to reflect on their own fears and insecurities about speaking up. What had begun as a hesitant plea became an inspiration for many in attendance. Rosa Parks watched with quiet satisfaction from the sidelines. It was not just about one girl finding her voice. It was about creating an environment where every student felt valued and safe enough to share their ideas without judgment. The assembly came alive with excitement as more hands shot up in response to Maya's question. Hands that once held back due to fear now reached out with enthusiasm. Encouragement rippled through the audience like waves on a shore, proving that a single act of kindness could spark courage in others and create powerful connections within a community. In those moments, as voices rose in harmony, a chorus of young minds ready to challenge norms, Maya realized that her journey was just beginning, enriched by the knowledge that kindness could change everything. As the assembly progressed, Maya felt a profound change within herself. No longer the hesitant girl who had almost slipped away in fear, she now stood firm in her newfound courage. The supportive responses from her peers washed over her like a warm wave, filling her with a sense of belonging and purpose she had longed for. She realized that speaking up was not merely an act of bravery, it was an essential part of who she was. With each word she shared, Maya felt the weight of her earlier insecurities lift. She no longer worried about being ridiculed. Instead, she focused on the power of her voice to influence others and spark important conversations. In that moment, she understood that asking questions was not just a means of seeking answers but also a way to inspire fellow students to engage with their own ideas and perspectives. The experience transformed Maya's understanding of herself and her role within her community. She began to see that every question asked was a step toward enlightenment, both for herself and those around her. Empowered by this realization, she made a mental note to continue asking questions, even when the path seemed difficult or uncertain. In this pivotal moment, she felt a strong connection to Rosa Parks and all the other voices of change throughout history, voices that resonated with strength even in the face of adversity. Maya also noticed something remarkable happening around her. Other students, emboldened by her courage, began to share their thoughts and ideas more freely. The atmosphere shifted from one of hesitation to one of excitement. Together, they created an environment ripe for dialogue and exploration, a space where everyone felt comfortable contributing without fear of judgment. The assembly became more than just an event, it evolved into a celebration of expression and empowerment. For Maya, this transformation was personal yet collective. Her voice mattered not only for herself but as a beacon for others who might also be struggling to find theirs. As the discussions grew more animated and engaged, Maya felt invincible. She realized that challenges could be faced head-on and that vulnerability didn't equate to weakness. Rather, it opened doors to understanding and connection. With every question she pondered and every interaction she embraced, Maya's sense of purpose solidified. She was part of something bigger than herself. In that moment of clarity, Maya made a promise to herself. She would continue to seek out opportunities for dialogue, understanding that her voice had the potential to inspire positive change in others and within herself. The journey ahead would be filled with challenges, but now she felt ready to face them with courage and grace. As the assembly came to a close, the energy in the room still buzzed with excitement and newfound confidence. Maya stood among her peers, reflecting on everything that had transpired. She realized that this experience was not just a fleeting moment. It was a powerful lesson about the importance of standing up, both for oneself and for others who might feel voiceless. The echoes of Rosa Parks' words resonated in her heart. Your voice matters. Never let anyone silence it. These words served as a reminder that every person has the ability to influence change, no matter how young or timid they may feel. Maya understood now that speaking up wasn't just about making noise. It was about sharing thoughts, asking questions, and creating space for others to do the same. Each voice added color to the tapestry of their community. Maya looked around at her classmates, and noticed how many had transformed alongside her. Those who had once been hesitant were now chatting animatedly, buoyed by the support of their peers. The environment had shifted from one that stifled expression to one that celebrated courage and engagement. Together, they had created a place where everyone could contribute without fear or shame, a true reflection of unity and empowerment. This experience opened Maya's eyes to the strength that encouragement can provide. She recognized how a simple act of kindness could light a spark in someone else's heart, turning trepidation into courage. The tender moment between her and Rosa Parks had been much more than just an interaction. It had galvanized not only Maya but also all those who witnessed it. It illustrated how pivotal moments can inspire collective action and foster positive change within a community. Moving forward, Maya made a promise to herself. She would be an advocate for others like Rosa had been for her, a source of encouragement for anyone who felt silenced or marginalized. She knew that she could use her voice and presence to uplift her classmates and help build an atmosphere where everyone felt valued. In days to come, As challenges arose, Maya would remember this day as the starting point of her journey toward championing justice and equality. She now felt empowered to tackle adversity head-on and inspire others with her actions and words. With each question she posed and every story she shared, Maya would continue to reinforce the idea that courage is contagious, and that together, they could create ripples of change in their world. This was the lasting lesson she would carry with her, illuminating her path forward with hope and determination.